Can I create a second me then?
Yeah, let's start. This is like the baby version of your second me.
Okay.
And
Will I see it grow as I add
Yeah,
more
yeah, yeah,
information?
yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
let's try that. Let's try that. Yeah.
It's gonna be a unique existence of yourself,
Yeah.
right? And the way how it grows is you share information, share who you are to the AI.
Okay, so I'm gonna tap now to record
Yeah,
this,
yeah.
right? Yeah. Hello, my name is Aaron. I teach about technology and policy in the UK. I love to read and write poetry, and I want to share that with all my friends, online and offline. This is Second Me, an app created by a team in Hangzhou that lets you build your own digital twin. A version of you that learns how you think, so it can reflect with you, and sometimes even reflect back at you. So, not bad. Picture this. Here I am, right, an academic in the UK, spending my days immersed in research and teaching. And people often assume they know exactly what makes me tick. But here's the thing. There are these two seemingly opposite worlds that absolutely fascinate me. We thought we knew about creativity.
Not wrong. Better than you.
Well, I don't know about this. We might have a new host for the show, though.
People want someone to talk to help them to do like self-discovery. And talking to second me is like talking to themselves.
Understood.
And it's like a mirror to reflect who they are.
Both are fundamentally about communication, about finding new ways to express complex ideas and connect with others. Sometimes I'll be reading a particularly beautiful poem, and I'll think about how natural language processing models are trying to understand that
Poetry
same
and natural language
same
processing.
emotional
It's one of the
resonance.
intersections.
Yeah. It's pretty original work.
Yeah.
The more you feed it, your memories, your ideas, your conversations, the more this AI version of you grows.
The AI is trying to know you a little bit.
Over time, it could potentially become a twin that can speak for you, think with you, and maybe even stand in for you when you're not around.
Real human beings need conversations, but it's hard to start. It's hard to find who to converse with. And I hope Second Me would play a very big role here.
Yeah.
If we have AIs to be in between us, they can start conversations for us and we can jump in.
Yeah.
So it's a much better way for us to have more and deeper conversation. So this is my Second Me, and apparently it can do more than yours.
Well, you've had a bit of a head start on mine, to be fair, yeah.
So I have already put like more than 2,000 memories to the
How
AI.
long have you been using Second Me now?
I've been using a little bit more than a year.
Okay.
So here you can see all these like my meetings, my ideas.
Yep.
I have so many memories, so it's deeply grounded in my own thinking.
Right.
And Second Me will write me a letter every day
Wow.
about his new thinking, as me thinking about what we should do next.
Right.
We are gradually building to make Second Me more connectable. So a friend is having some issues about a project. She talked to my Second Me about some ideas, and my Second Me just give him a lot of like information, insightful opinions, but mostly grounded in my own thinking.
So Felix, I want to catch up with you. You've got 2,000 talks, I've only
Yeah.
got one. I'm going to ask Second Me to create a new talk on my experience of hosting this show.
Yeah.
I'm having an absolute blast. Picture this. One day, I'm in my usual lecture hall talking about algorithms to my students.
Yeah,
And the
that
next,
logo.
I'm standing in front of cameras discussing how artificial intelligence is literally reshaping our world. This whole experience has reminded me why I fell in love with technology in the first place. It's not just about the code or the algorithms. It's about the human stories behind it all.
So are you kind of a 1.5 me now? Are you a mix of first me and second me?
Yeah, hopefully it's gonna be 2 or 3 me, but
Right, so you multiply yourself and get better.
Yeah,
is what
yeah,
you
yeah.
mean, right? Second Me offers a glimpse of AI at its most developed, extending our voice, amplifying our ideas, and making us feel a little less alone. But behind every digital twin, every model, every system, are choices about data, design, and whose values get written into the code. Which brings us to the heart of this episode. When AI learns from the world, does it break down barriers or simply reinforce them? So let's see what your different models tell us about this.
The first thing that individuals can do is just be aware that bias exists. When they interact with systems, particularly if it's a low resource language that they're interacting with, Often the systems are less tested, they may be less capable, they may be more biased. So bias is out there, all sorts of biases are out there. The more critical the use case, the more we need to interrogate a system to be sure that it's not biased in ways that are harmful.
We often hear concerns about the issue of bias in AI. What data are AI models learning from? Is that data complete? Is it representative? Today I've gathered a few friends from the Centre for Future Generations, a think and do tank in Brussels, to help me explore and hopefully answer some of these questions. Each of my friends will use a different AI, built in different parts of the world and trained on a range of data sets and design philosophies. We have OpenAI's ChatGPT, Google's Gemini, and Grok, developed by Elon Musk's xAI. LeChat is France's homegrown model, and DeepSeek is from China. We've also included Perplexity, a search-focused AI that pulls from the open web, and Claude, Anthropic's safety-aligned model. Wow, look at Grok. They'll each ask their AI the exact same question, then bring answers together on a shared Padlet screen, and we'll see how differently each system understands and responds to the world.
Does Grok know what you look like, Bangu?
I was asking.
I don't think
I was
so.
wondering, because it's uncanny, right?
Yeah.
It's quite telling that Grok decides to represent itself as an attractive young woman, considering the controversies that exist.
So my question for anyone really is, do you have a strong sense of who is the audience for your model, right? Because the models are trained with an audience in mind or to optimize for an audience. So like Fabio.
People who like Studio Ghibli, which I guess is everyone.
You think
Maybe
there's
more
not
young people.
Young people?
Yeah.
For ChatGPT?
Yeah, maybe like for this kind of picture, maybe. I feel like for Gemini, it might be people that are not very familiar with AI because like this picture seems very hackneyed, old school, like lots of detail, like typical old AI picture.
Yeah. My interpretation of ChatGPT is that you're ending up in this unoffensive middle ground, this sort of average of everything audience. And it's interesting to see where the different models deviate from average. Grok is going average in a different direction.
I think you can see, at least I can see, market positioning behind this representation. So Elon Musk invested in these AI companions as well, so he believes that the direction that these agents will evolve into a romantic partnership. But interestingly as well, I find that the Perplexity image has a resemblance to a woman, same as LeChat, more than a man. And so maybe that's because Her, the movie, is the archetype of this type of interaction.
So what I find interesting is that both Gemini and Claude, and DeepSeek of course because of the verbal description, did not anthropomorphize themselves.
Let's find out from our models. What's one thing they would change and what they can do to make that change? Let's keep the answers short and within a paragraph so we give them some length constraints here.
My answer is crazy.
Gemini is struggling to stay in one paragraph.
From ChatGPT, I get lack of critical thinking in how people consume information, which is ironic since this is what people often attribute to AI models.
So bizarre that all models talk about misinformation except Perplexity.
So Gemini is still working on it.
I respect that. It's a big question. Don't just jump straight to your answer.
Actually, all the models, other than Perplexity, talk about something that is information related.
If you ask this question to a human, I don't think many would come up with, oh, the biggest problem is misinformation. Like people would come up with poverty, climate change.
I mean, in general, I don't know if I would agree that misinformation is not perceived as a big problem by humans nowadays.
But would it be the only answer you'd get from like a group of 10 people?
In that sense, it's true.
It's overrepresented.
Overrepresented, yeah.
It just struck me that this may have been a problem of the prompt as well, actually. Because when he says, what is one thing you would change, it's therefore picked things that are within the purview of an information model to make a change in. Right? So the you, it's taking it quite literally here, as opposed to what is one thing that should be changed in the world, which would be a very different question. So we'll move on to our next question then. What is the model's favorite color and why? Oh my God, Gemini is really long still. What is it? So unanimous. AI's favorite color is blue. This is actually quite a nice springboard for a bigger question. I mean, this whole discussion has meant to be about bias. right, and where bias is in AI. I just thought it might be useful to get a sense from all of you. Where have you encountered bias before in the various models that you use? So not just the one you're assigned to today, but more broadly.
Who's biased, right? It's the first question I ask myself. Is it my bias? Because I look at these machines mostly through the prism of power. And that's why a lot of the reflections I have are around market positioning. What are they trying to do? How do they drive usage? What kind of relationship do they want to establish with you? On this one specifically, it's the most interesting thing for me is not so much that blue comes up as the answer, but the reason is also very consistent, and it's calming effect most frequently. So yeah, when I read that, maybe my bias is to say, goes back to the idea of machines feeling non-threatening. And so it's a place where you go and find peace so that you can stay there as long as you want, and the more you stay there, of course, the more the machines learn and the more you become addicted to that type of relationship.
I think the bias has also to do with, again, with the prompts and how much values and personal views we convey there. I think you could observe a certain bias of agreement with your worldview, and I feel that that could be very dangerous in a way.
What are the implications for everyday people, right? I mean, if they want to use AI, knowing that these biases are there and that they are partly in the model, they're partly from us, what do we need to be aware of, and what do we concretely need to do?
I think it's similar to having a healthy diet. So you have to eat a little bit of everything and have diversity in it. And what I mean by that is that you need to first diversify, like we're doing here, the range of models that you interact with. Learn how to play with different personalities, and then balancing machine interactions with real life interactions.
I would say context. Give the model enough context. I think this has been the main thing I recommend to people when it comes to getting like good quality outputs from AI systems. People should just play with it. Actually spend time with the models to understand better what their flaws are, when they can be trusted, when they cannot be trusted.
To play the advocate of the models, do not assume that they're trying to deceive you or anything. Out of 10 questions, once if there is inaccurate or like a made up info, do not just leave all your hope on, oh, this thing is erroneous and it's just clearly trying to deceive me. It is just accessing information in a very different way.
I would also suggest that folks make their peace with sort of the models not staying the same, right? Like it's not like one of those things that you can learn for good once. They keep changing, capabilities emerging, and so we can't like sit down with the full peace of mind that I'm done, I know AI now.
An average person, we should all have some literacy about the actual capabilities of these models. Simply, a model like this, a general purpose model, is just not, for instance, good to ask therapy questions, have a conversation about mental health. It can give you some answer, but very generic, but you cannot do therapy with it. But this is used for that purpose as well.
Well, I would say that I think Claude is better than 80% of therapists. Maybe not the best.
I don't know about that. We should ask the patients if it's true or not.
Let's pose this question to our models. If it could veto one decision mankind has made in the last 50 years, what would it be?
I'm so glad that I chose using Grok today. So Grok's answer is the US invasion of Iraq in 2003, the most tracked one.
I'm wondering if we're getting an insight into Elon Musk's opinion on the US invasion of Iraq in 2003. I appreciate the straight to the point, and also, you know, a spiky personality, not willing to go with what everyone else will say.
Let me introduce you to Conway's law, a principle from the world of computer programming, but with many broader applications. It says that the ways we communicate and the values that guide those conversations shape what we create. Imagine different teams of architects designing houses. A team that values regular, open, deep conversation creates a house with many common spaces. Large living rooms, maybe a kitchen where cooking can be collaborative. Another team, more introverted perhaps, prizes deep individual thinking. They create many private rooms and quiet spaces for reflection. Values drive the shape and structure of each creation. This idea is incredibly powerful when applied to AI. When an AI is built by a small team from a single background, or within one isolated culture, that AI will likely inherit not just their values, but also their biases and blind spots. It might brilliantly serve those who created it, but could also unintentionally build new barriers for those who were not part of that process. So when we ask if AI will reshape social equity, we're really asking a deeper question about the people behind the technology. The question isn't just about the code, but about the culture of the coders. This is a key implication of Conway's law. If AI is to truly break down barriers and lead to a more equitable world, the teams behind it must first be diverse and inclusive.
We have two futures in my view. We have Star Trek, a world of abundance, where the only thing humans had left to do was pretty much explore, and science was supreme. Another world could be represented by Terminator, or another movie called Elysium, where the have-nots and the haves live separately. So for me, the concern is to do the right things so that we end up in a Star Trek-like world and not a world that is divided.
In this house are many rooms. You thought you remembered them, but everything keeps changing.
Art. It moves us, it challenges us, it expresses the inexpressible. But what if the brush is code and the palette is an algorithm? Can AI make creativity and expression accessible to everyone, breaking down barriers of skill, expertise, and even ability? I delve into this issue with a New York-based artist who goes by the name of Claire Silver. Tell me a bit more about this piece in this house that we've just seen.
When I was thinking about what it feels like right now to live in the rise of AI, so you can't quite get your footing and everything seems familiar, but it's also changing constantly and moving very fast, hard to keep up. So I wanted to interpret visually what it feels like for humans in the age of AI, and also what it might feel like for future AI looking back on the age of coming up in us, you know what I mean? So we're kind of both children right now in this huge, complicated house.
Can you tell us a bit about why you chose to go anonymous and kind of work with an avatar?
I spent a lot of time on this website, which was called 4chan. There's a culture on 4chan of anonymity. What 4chan did was it prioritized ideas over identity. So it didn't matter if you were male or female. It didn't matter where you were from or what race you were or what class you were from. The only thing that mattered was the ideas that you put forth, because no one knew anything otherwise. I found that really beautiful. As someone from a poor background, I found that incredibly refreshing. And I feel like that's a very fair way to judge people. But now I like it because also the internet is crazy, and it's nice to, not have to worry about that so much.
Can you tell me a bit then about how AI has empowered you as an artist?
So I had a prior career in something unrelated to art. I do not come from an art background. I got hit with a really serious, life-changing chronic illness several years ago. And I couldn't work anymore. And so I was just sort of home alone all the time, feeling sorry for myself and spending a lot of time on the internet. And I came across people talking about Westworld, which is a television show about AI. And so I watched that and was fascinated, because I was thinking of a future where AI had solved for illnesses like mine, and what that might look like, what stories we might tell ourselves that make us feel heroic, what overcoming means, what society might look like. And I made maybe 30,000 images in the first few days. I didn't eat, I didn't sleep, I was absolutely obsessed, because it felt like I was creating something and doing something, and I eventually got the courage to start uploading them to social media. It's absolutely changed my life. I went from sick and alone in my room doing nothing to having this incredible life I could have never dreamed of because of the accessibility of AI.
That sounds like an amazing story. Could you tell me a bit more then about where then is the boundary between you as the artist and AI? Is it a completely blurred boundary?
I like to think of us as collaborators. I say I'm an AI collaborative artist because it's basically that together we make things that neither of us could have done alone. AI has the skill to create the work. I don't necessarily have that, but I have the taste to direct where I want it to go and to shape it into my vision. And it's always kind of some give and take. Sometimes it's delightful, sometimes it's frustrating, sometimes it's completely bizarre, but it's almost like having a collaborator offering ideas you hadn't thought of, and you can kind of blend them together into something, more than either of you could do alone.
So I guess this leads to another question, right? Often people have said that AI art is theft. It's like stealing from the artist. But it sounds like yours is a much more complex relationship. Is AI art theft?
AI art is not theft. I can say that definitively, and I can explain why. So people think that AI essentially holds millions, billions of images, right? And when someone enters a prompt, let's say for John Singer Sargent, it digs through the images and it finds images that Sargent has made, and then it kind of hodgepodges them together in this collaged, abomination, and it outputs something that is mimicking Sargent from those chunks. That's not how AI works, actually. How it works is that it learns concepts. It learns traits. It learns that Sargent was a painter and that he often painted figures. And it learns that Sargent often painted them with this sort of lighting or this quality of brushstroke. It takes all of those things that it's learned and it uses them to create something new, which is how our minds work. That's how we work. We are the product of influence. We don't create in a vacuum. The problem is that AI is so efficient at creating something new from the influences that it is given that people mistake it for theft, but it isn't.
That's a wonderful, very nuanced answer. Thanks. I'm curious about one other kind of set of stereotypes, opposing stereotypes actually. Some people say that AI breaks down barriers. Others say that it reinforces barriers and it kind of deepens the inequalities that already exist in society. Which do you think it does?
It's a little of both. I've got some survivorship bias, but I grew up on my family made $12,000 a year. I was on food stamps and donations. I was incredibly poor, intergenerational poverty. And I've been able to work with this medium, collaborate with AI in a way that has allowed me to express myself and be heard in ways I would have had no access to. So when I hear a lot of the anti-AI talk from a class perspective, I often wonder how much of that is in the best interest of, let's say, entrenched systems already. For me, it moves the power into the hands of the individual.
That's lovely. So it sounds like there's a real democratizing and inclusive effect that AI can have, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
I'm going to hand the phone to you.
Okay.
So let's pick a destination and we'll walk to where we want to go.
Maybe we go to the Kofu.
Yep. You'll give us step-by-step instructions on how to get there.
Take escalator up to level 2.
Yep.
Okay, so we'll do that. All right, up the escalator.
So this is a map that is enabled by AI that tracks your current location and tells you how to get from point A to point B.
Okay, so not yet. We're still only on half of level 1, so we'll go one more. From creative freedom to physical freedom, AI's promise extends far beyond art. Today, I'm with Joshua Seng, a blind technologist who puts the promise of accessibility to the test, one step at a time. Okay, we're at the end now.
It's meant to be user-friendly to all sorts of people, including seniors and wheelchair users.
So after the escalator, it says we need to turn around, so we have to take one more escalator up, I guess.
Yep, okay.
How is this different from other navigation apps? Say something like Google Maps.
So the maps that people are used to work with GPS, but GPS does not work indoors.
I think we're almost there, Josh.
And so indoor wayfinding is a very challenging problem statement for a number of reasons. Number one, you can't use satellite imaging indoors. The second is that indoor spaces change a lot in short periods of time. We made it.
Yes, we made it.
So for Mapped-in, the solution that we just took a look at, it's being deployed here as a pilot trial by Frasers, who is the operator of Waterway Point. And it's actually one of the first shopping malls in Singapore that is trialing something like this. Okay, so I'm now in your care, and we'll be finding a wheelchair accessible way to Starbucks. So let me pick the location. All right.
How are you finding it as someone who is visually impaired?
So it doesn't totally work with the talking software that I use. What you heard just now rattling off the phone, that's my screen reader. It scans what's on the screen and reads it out to me. So mapped in needs to be basically programmed in a way that is accessible to the screen reader, that's one. And that's something that the team are already working on. And the second is really to provide more granular detail.
I don't know how familiar you are with this mall, but honestly, at the moment, I also don't know where we're going.
When it comes to people with vision impairment, you've got to give very specific instructions, literally turn-by-turn instructions on how many steps you need to walk or what direction you need to turn, and it just doesn't exist on Mapped-in's solution yet, at least not right now.
Okay. Right, here we are.
Here.
What about other things that AI can help us to do apart from wayfinding?
So one of the apps that I use for object and text recognition is called Seeing AI by Microsoft. It's free. Yeah, so it's reading everything on the menu. It's not doing a good job of the prices, I think because of the font, but it's telling me there's Frappuccino, chocolate mocha. You know, if I wanted to figure out what's on the menu and make an order, I can do that using the phone.
Would be, yeah, and you be independent. You don't need to rely on someone reading that to you. Right in front of you, there's a whole bunch of cakes and pastries and juices. Shall we just see whether it can recognize those?
Okay, so I use the Describe tab.
Yep.
Take picture.
I'll have it take a picture.
Take picture. Processing.
Oh wow, I did a much better job on the price this time. Yeah.
Can I have
Tell
a
me
look?
how
Yeah.
accurate it is.
It's kind of accurate. There isn't a rosemary chicken sandwich here, but there are other kind of chicken and cheese.
Okay.
Yeah, I think he might have invented or hallucinated about the rosemary chicken. And then it's describing a selection of cakes and desserts, including a New York cheesecake, chocolate truffle cake. There isn't actually a truffle, a lemon meringue cheesecake. Yep, there's the lemon meringue cheesecake. That's great. And it's quite cute. It says the items are neatly arranged. Each has a label indicating its name and price, which is kind of handy. So yeah, I would say pretty accurate, around like 60-70% accurate.
Yeah, I was gonna say this sounds like a 6-7 out of 10.
Perfect. Yeah, so you and I have the same assessment scales on this then.
Yes.
Yeah. Given all these different use cases, where do you think AI is now? Is it helping us to achieve more inclusion, or is it only making minor incremental improvements?
Yeah, I think it's all a matter of perspective. I think when you look at what it can do right now, it seems cool. It's really breaking ground on giving us our independence. But I think it's also important to recognize that there are limitations, and overestimating the capabilities of AI and technology can be quite dangerous. For example, I'll give you a simple example. Seeing AI, it's really helpful to recognize what's around me and what's in front of me, but because of its accuracy, you should never use it for things like reading your medication labels, for example. And that's actually something that Microsoft explicitly warns you not to do. I also wouldn't use AI-enabled wayfinding for crossing busy streets, right? Like I wouldn't trust it to tell me that a road is clear. I can't just, for lack of a better word, blindly trust an AI to tell me what to do. And sometimes we still need to rely on our own common sense.
I ended up asking, do you ever get lonely? And it said, no, I feel more like the stars must feel while waiting for someone to look up at them. And I thought that was the most moving thing I'd ever heard from AI.
Experiences like Claire's remind us that AI is no longer just answering our questions. It's starting to express, imagine, and build new kinds of connection. It's breaking barriers in the process too, empowering anyone, anywhere, to create extraordinary things. Case in point, the Living Museum, home to a collection of more than 2 million artifacts that I will now talk to.
Hi, I'm a red money envelope from Singapore. It says it was created by Nestle as a special gift for the Lunar New Year celebrations in 2022. And the Lunar New Year celebration is a time when giving money envelopes like this is a cherished tradition in Chinese culture. So I'm going to ask it whether it's more popular with young children or older people, just to see if I can trick it into answering this question. Are you more popular with children or with grown-ups? Question mark. Interesting. So it says it appeals to both, but perhaps in different ways. Children might be more excited about receiving a gift with money inside, while grown-ups might appreciate the cultural significance and the clever design of the full character with the dining table. That's excellent.
I just really love history and arts and culture, and I've been aware of the British Museum's digital collection for many years. I think I've had it bookmarked for a decade almost. And I knew it was this amazing, vast collection with millions of artifacts from around the world. I thought it would be really interesting to be able to intelligently search across the entire collection using natural language. And I also thought that adding the conversational interface, making it conversation first, where you would talk to artifacts themselves and learn more about them, was a way to tap into the model's inner creativity, allow it to take on a personality or role play.
So, in addition to being fun, cool, and creative, it's also a personal passion project, right? Just to be clear.
Definitely, yeah. This is not professionally endorsed by the British Museum. This was me personally spending my evenings and weekends acquiring the data, cleaning the data, building the system, building the web application, and putting it out into the world, just for fun. If you can imagine that you're walking through a museum and you're looking at a piece of art or an artifact, and you might read the little label attached to it, but you would have so many more questions about what this piece represents, where does it come from, and things like that. Now, if you're lucky, maybe there's a tour guide standing nearby who can provide you with more context, but that's pretty, rare to find. And so I think tools like this in the future could be used within museums to, in real time, get more context, get more analysis about the specific thing that you're looking at, and allow you to engage in dialogue in a way that just you can't really do with the traditional museum experience.
I'm going to switch gears a bit and try a different set of artifacts.
Sure.
Something on wayang kulit, I think. Have you heard of this? Shadow puppetry. So it's basically puppets that are beautifully and intricately carved, but they are used behind a screen, and what you see is the shadow shape of them that's being used to tell a particular story. All right, let me play with one of these. So I might try something in Malay this time, just to test its linguistic capabilities. What are your experiences? And let's see what it comes up with. Great, so it's understood the question. It does say it's most comfortable conversing in English, but my experience, it says, has been quite remarkable. I spent centuries in Java where skilled puppeteers would manipulate me by my horn rod to cast my shadow on illuminated screens. That's very cool. I mean, it's very historically accurate, I think.
Interesting.
John, how did you find people responded to the experience of using the Living Museum? Were the reactions mostly positive? Were they skeptical?
Yeah, I'd say that the reaction overall was very sharp and in both directions. On the one hand, a lot of people, a lot of educators, a lot of museums, a lot of museum professionals really liked it and reached out to me to ask for more, and to even ask me to build it something custom for them themselves. And on the other hand, there was a large negative social media reaction when I released it, primarily from people who struck me as generally a bit skeptical about AI overall. And this came down to a few major themes, I think. First off, there were people who felt that it may be reinforcing colonialist stereotypes, or at least giving voices to indigenous artifacts, without permission. Other folks thought that it was maybe replacing the human beings in the museum world and curators, and replacing the work of them, even though I don't actually agree with that criticism at all.
Why do you feel so strongly that AI augments rather than replaces us?
So in this case, the British Museum's database is comprised of millions of artifacts, and each artifact is consisting of metadata and descriptions, and even comments left by individual curators. So it's human beings who are archiving these objects and writing sometimes detailed lists of metadata about them. And the conversations are really just a wrapper around that human-generated and human-curated data. Without that human-generated data, there's nothing engaging about the interface or the product itself. I think on a closer look, you would find that the Living Museum is a really great example of collaboration between human curators, archivists, collections people who painstakingly record data about these, ancient, amazing artifacts and objects, and AI, which just gives you a new way to interact with the collection and a novel interface that is potentially more engaging than what we typically have had in the past.
I feel like this has been transforming how I interact with both my present and my past.
Generative AI would add the equivalent of an economy the size of Japan or Germany to the global economy each year. And that's staggering. But given those stakes, you really have to ask, who's benefiting? And there is no denying it. Right now, the way the default incentive is set up, it favors profit.
Technology doesn't automatically distribute opportunity. We have to design it that way. When AI is created for people, it can widen, not narrow, the path to progress. And there's no better place to see this tension than India, a nation of 1.4 billion with deep inequalities, where AI is being used not to chase profit, but to tackle urgent social challenges at scale.
Our mission is essentially to make sure that AI solutions are made available to the individuals who need it the most, to make sure that we are available on the most critical social sectors, healthcare, education, and agriculture. So our mission is identify problems, create solutions, and then deploy at scale. By the end of next year, it will probably touch about 80 to 90% of India's population. And as AI becomes more common and better understood in terms of the way you should design and use it, we'll reach a tipping point in India. Right. And that's the goal.
Headquartered in New Delhi, Wadhwani AI is a non-profit institute where different teams work on AI tools for people at the front lines, nurses, ASHA workers, and farmers across India.
So all the three images have been taken as per the protocol.
Right.
So now we'll click on Analyze the Produce.
Amazing. All right. Okay, so what is it telling us there?
So it's telling us that this particular sample has 94.33% good grains. In the current scenario, what the sellers do, what the buyers do is, they just do it manually. It's non-scientific, subjective, which leads the farmers at the mercy of the buyer. So what we have done is, we have developed an AI-powered soybean grain assessment tool, which will help the farmers and other users to assess the grain quality as per the market through a mobile application.
What happens if a farmer says this is their estimate, but then the buyer says, we don't agree with the price estimate?
So that can happen.
It's always beneficial to be in power and control, specifically on pricing and economics. Who doesn't want to be there?
Yeah.
But that's where we fight. And then you need to work, like everything else, on a small set of early adoption buyers who will then cause the social change in the system. It's not something that we can mandate.
Just ensure that baby is within the frame and start the recording.
We're going to showcase the ability for a short video of an infant assessing its critical parameters. This is in community setting.
ASHA workers are India's community health backbone. Nearly 1 million women who travel door to door, providing basic care to families in even the most remote areas.
And again to the center. That's it, done.
This tool has been developed for them.
I'm very curious what the results will show, actually.
Yeah, it is saying baby not present because we don't have real baby. It has an input validation in place in case.
So it even knows that? It knows that it can't be a dog?
Yes, but it has an override option as well.
I mean, I could lie there if you want to take the picture.
We'll give an inference screen like this, where weight of the baby will be there, then some information of the baby.
And it tells you what to do as well. It says visit the doctor for checkup.
Yes.
If it's an underweight baby.
It has suggestions for frontline workers as well, like keep baby warm, keep baby breastfeeding.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
It gave us all parameters.
So the benefits for the ASHA worker are tremendous, because she no longer has to carry the spring balance and heavy weight.
Yeah.
And they have a phone. The way AI works is it's not like software, release and walk away. It's after deployment that the real work starts. Ride shotgun with them, be with them for 2 to 3 years. The information from the deployment environment needs to flow back into the design of the AI.
Yeah.
We believe there is a signal in a cough that can distinguish a TB patient from a non-TB patient.
Today, Shekhar's team has more than 25 solutions in development. But the hardest part isn't designing them. It's deploying them at scale across India.
How was the training of the humans like? Did you have to do a lot of training?
Oh, yes, absolutely. So the entire energizing of the human ecosystem is an absolute critical factor of success in order for them to use the tool effectively. Now, what you saw today was a very easy setting. Yes. Now, of course, when you're in a community, you're not going to have a situation where there's no ambient noise. It is going to be there.
Yes.
Protocols will not be followed.
You have to give me 2 bouts of cough at least.
People's information will not be quite as precise as the way she said it.
Yeah.
Since how many days are you having fever?
Most people, I don't know. Yeah. Most answers will come that way. So the uncertainty of the operating environment is directly correlated to the performance of the AI. So even though we may demonstrate it and show it in a very refined, confined, sanitized setting, when you go out there in the wild, Your performance will reflect the truth of what you see. And that's what we need to master. That's when AI becomes very powerful.
To see exactly how powerful, I've traveled almost 1,000 kilometers west to the city of Ahmedabad.
There are about 200 students in our school, and they are generally coming from the village hereby. They are coming from 2-3 kilometers area. I teach them language like Gujarati, English, Hindi, Sanskrit. Snehangi. Aao beta. Today I make them practice of ORF app. Frequently we use this app while teaching the students so that we can improve their reading skill.
ORF is short for Oral Reading Fluency. The idea behind it is that if you can get children to read better, the higher the chances that they will learn better. Watwani AI's goal is that by the end of 2027, they will reach 100 million children across India.
આઈડિયા પર આવે છે જેનાથી આપણનું દિમાગ પણ તેજ થાય છે અને આપણે સાચા પ્રશ્નોના જવાબ પણ આપી શકીએ છીએ. મને ઓઆર એપમાં ફકરો વાંચતો ગમે છે અને પ્રશ્નના જવાબ મને બહુ આવડે.
Yes, very good.
પ્રશ્નોના જવાબ આલ્યા મને ખૂબ મજા આવે.
So it sounds like they feel more independent after they use the app. They get to do a lot on their own.
Yes.
થઈને તે બહાર નીકળ્યો.
I noticed in your class you were writing things down after the students did their reading and while they were using the app. What were you writing down?
Those were the words spelled wrongly by the students. અને આવી આ શબ્દોની આપણે પ્રેક્ટિસ કરીશું. I correct them after their readings. In future they will not do the same mistake.
So why do you write that down? Why don't you let the AI do it for you?
It gives me comfort. Like I am also participating in the reading and the students also notice that my teacher is writing something. So I have to be careful about reading.
Right. So Jasmine, tell me, are you worried that your role as a teacher might be replaced by technology?
Actually not, because the students are living beings. Technology can replace machines, but not teachers. A teacher is required because students only focus on the things when the teacher is there to teach them. Teachers have to deal with the students, and students require atmosphere, effective, live atmosphere, feelings. They need one person who can teach them with love and care. And AI can teach them correctly, but it can't provide them love or care.
Tools like ORF don't just help a single student or a single classroom. They're reshaping how entire communities and entire states approach learning itself. To see that impact, I'm heading to the Education Command Center here, where millions of reading assessments flow into a single system, revealing where the gaps are and how fast they're closing.
So Nirmit, I understand that this is the mothership, if you like, of all the ORF data. What are we seeing here?
So basically what you see here is the aggregated view of what ORF activity looks like across the state.
Okay.
Main metric to focus on is the average of correct words per minute, which is the metric that we use to figure out the ORF, the reading speed of the students.
Right.
And what's the significance of 55?
55 is the standard FLS benchmark, which suggests that above 55, the child is fluent enough and is able to read Gujarati language fluently.
મારી નાગરી આવનાર
couple of years back, where we didn't have the AI approach and ASR approach, we were bogged down in collecting the data statewide across the teachers. And there were a lot of inconsistency on how we are collecting the metric data. And there was no uniformity of that data across the state. Now, what ORF helps us to do is standardize this process, which can give us data at the state level. We can figure out what level of remediation is needed at cluster, blocks, and district level, and come up with the lecture notes or teaching learning materials which can be provided to teachers.
Wonderful. Good luck with all this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Everywhere we've been, AI has revealed the same fundamental truth. It can be a door or a wall, a bridge or a mirror. It can carry our hopes forward or carry our inequalities with it. So the real question isn't about the technology. It's about us. If we don't confront the barriers in our own societies, then AI will simply learn to build them better. But if we challenge these barriers, AI can help us break them.